hope that it's not as bad as they're thinking it's going to be. But if it is, it's a good thing that we're evacuated. So I'm ready to go home.
We just had to be prepared, get out. We had to change our tickets so that we could evacuate. But now we just need to find something to eat and get on the bus because we have to get out of here.
You're just hearing from some travelers there trying to get home from Atlantic City, hoping that it won't be as bad. But this is why we're telling you to have a plan now. I want to say much of New Jersey transit, including light rail service, has already been closed down, and we're nearing the 1 hour mark before we close down all New York City transit. Welcome back. Again, want to bring in Reynolds Wolf. He's actually out in Mystic, Connecticut. And Reynolds, I was just reading part of the coastal flood warning there. Weather Service basically saying that the potential for 6 to 11 feet of that storm surge above the high tides there Monday night into Tuesday morning, that would be substantial in the area you're standing.
Oh, there's no question about that. And, you know, one of the big problems, Todd, too, is how the timing of this is just horrendous. Not only are you going to see that water rising up, but it's also possibly going to be coming through at the same time as high tide and with a full moon. So, yeah, that's going to be really, really awful, especially in places like this in Mystic. You know, I got to tell you, though, Todd, for you and for the rest of America, the scene that you see here looks very different than it did earlier. In fact, this was really just a beehive of activity. You had a lot of people out along these docks. You'll see a couple of ships here in the background, including this one, which is the Regina M. They're all secured, and shoot, even this one right here, the L.A. Dunton. Now, what's interesting is what they do when you have the rising waters that they anticipate, certainly anticipate with this one, is they put in a lot of slack in the guide rope. So when the water begins to rise up and it starts moving in, the boats will be able to do what the boats do best. They'll be able to float it out. However, the wind is going to be a big issue. The wind is going to be very strong. In fact, to be more specific, let's go ahead and show you some graphics that'll take you step by step through Monday night, and into Tuesday. Let's go. Let's begin with it. First and foremost, wind gusts. 60 miles per hour. We're talking tropical storm force winds. Some of those will be sustained. Then the water rise. We talked about that. Rain could be heavy at times. Now let's go ahead and show you Monday night. That's when they're going to get the teeth of this. That's when Sandy's really going to make her presence felt, especially here in New England. Here you go. Wind gusts at 70 plus. 70 plus. Could you get a gust of 80 plus here? Absolutely, that could happen. High impact on water rise, definitely going to see that here. The heavy rain's going to continue. Then as we ease our way into Tuesday, notice wind gusts dropping a bit, but still very strong, still tropical storm force, and still the periods of heavy rainfall. Now, we're talking about the rising water. We talked about how that could be a tremendous issue. It was an issue, you'll remember, with Irene. It got up to about the top of my feet. Now, I'm a big, tall geek. The water goes right up about here to me, and it could easily make its way right through here in terms of the flooding. Again, we're expecting about possibly 4 feet in this particular location, so that could be a big issue. Also, the strong winds, power outages expected throughout the region, so we're talking millions of people, millions of families without power. Let's send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Reynolds, thanks so much. And as you're talking there, I was also looking at some of the leaves on the trees behind him there. At least half of those may be off the trees, but still could be a big issue with the power outage potential there. Want to bring you now to Point Pleasant, New Jersey, and that's where we find our own Mike Seidel. Mike, and I'm just curious, as you headed out to the beach there, did you notice leaves still on the trees there in New Jersey as well?
Yeah, there's a fair amount of leaves on the trees. I drove from Philadelphia in a couple of days ago. Actually, I think it was yesterday. A couple days ago was Florida. Yesterday, and yes, a lot of great color coming across central New Jersey. And so more than a majority of the leaves are still in the trees. So we've got to deal with that. Also the wind and all the rain coming down. Meanwhile, look at the surge Oh, look at this wave coming up. Hello, coming right up towards us, filled with sea foam. Now that's what I'm talking timing. Just take a look at that. I know I made the camera shot. Now, we talked about the water coming up to the boardwalk with this high tide, and that wave certainly did it. Let me walk back out here, and you get a sense. I mean, that was a pure illustration of the force of the water now coming all the way up to the bottom of the boardwalk here on the south end of the boardwalk at Point Pleasant Beach. Wow, that was pretty exciting there. A lot of sea foam. We're just getting underway. We've got a high tide now in about an hour and a half or so, so we're going to have more water coming on up, and then it's tomorrow as the storm approaches and pushes more water up. Meanwhile, power crews around the area, northeast New England, bringing folks in from out of town, and they're doing that here with Central Jersey Power.
We've brought in 13 additional line workers from out of state in addition to the 400 Jersey Central Power and Light line workers. We've got 1,200 forestry personnel, and we're also backing up all of our management and support roles.
And that should be 1,300, not 13. He wanted me to correct himself. Todd, back to you there in Atlanta as the sea foam gets pushed. Here comes another wave. Look out.
All right, Mike Seidel, Point Pleasant Beach. Thanks so much. Keep your eyes on the ocean there. Again, at least an update there from Jersey Power as well. So, hey, up next, we'll bring you your full tropical update, including the very latest observations and a detailed look at when you may experience the worst of Hurricane Sandy. We'll be right back.
It's 50 minutes after the hour, time for the Tropical Update. Brian Norcross here at the Weather Channel Global Forecast Center. I want to show you a couple of different views of Sandy, first of all now and then moving forward, and then bring in Dr. Forbes to talk about the rainfall threat, and I'll show you why this is a significant part of this as well as the storm surge. First of all, here is your hurricane. It's in this area here. Now, it doesn't look like very much. As a matter of fact, hurricane hunters have been out there and they haven't found they can't look every single square inch of this thing as they fly around. So it's just barely got hurricane force winds, but the energy, I just did the calculation, it's 900 miles across of tropical storm force winds. I've never seen numbers like that measured in something that's being called a hurricane. And you see over here on the left side where the upper air jet stream is interacting with this tropical system and that very heavy rain. Now, take a look at our RPM computer model. This is this evening at 7 o'clock, and here you see that rain in the Cape Hatteras, Norfolk, Tidewater area spreading up toward the Washington area. Now, watch as we go through. Well, we missed that, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to go back to that because I want you to see that, because where this rain is, and that'll be a good lead into Dr. Forbes. And watch this here. Watch it. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here it comes in. And look at where the rain stays. It stays on the left side of the circulation. You see that there? And then here it comes through the morning and up to noontime on Monday. It's still, the heavy rain is to the left side. So here comes the circulation here. The water is being pushed up against the coast to the right, but that heavy, heavy rain is over there to the left. And Dr. Forbes is here because we have significant concern about this, that the way it's hinging around, it's going to focus that rain and it's going to be a significant flood threat.
Yeah, it really is. It's almost tipping its hand already as to where the heaviest rain is going to be. Here you can see that. You see here from just to the west of Philadelphia to just east of Baltimore, down eastern shores of Maryland, all the way down to right around the Norfolk area into northeast parts of North Carolina, where already some places have had close to 6 inches. And that is where the air at the surface is colliding. To the west of that line, it's from the north. To the east of that, it's from the northeast. And that squeezing pushes up the moisture. And we'll have a continuation of heavy rain there. We already, in fact, a little bit farther to the west, have a river. The Monocacy River at Frederick, Maryland is already above flood stage. That's a bad sign because yet a lot more rain is going to fall there. Why is it falling where it is? So much heavy rain already? It's because of the jet stream beginning to interact now with Sandy. The jet stream makes a big southward excursion. We call that an upper air trough. It's cold in the middle of that. It's also what we call negatively tilted. It's an odd orientation from northwest to southeast. That really allows the air aloft to pull apart. The air rises, and it can, in fact, make the pressures fall. So we might actually either maintain Sandy's low pressure or expand it and make it a little bit more intense. There is Sandy. Those southeast winds in that jet stream are what are going to make a left turn up toward the New Jersey area and interacting with the frontal zone, taking that moist air from the north side of Sandy, pushing it into the front where we're already colliding, and then a little bit over the top of the cold air to the west of that. So the heavy rain north and west of the track of Sandy. All told, by Wednesday, at least 4 to 8 inches of rain are going to fall. If it falls as narrowly as it is right now in a very narrow little band, we'll certainly get well over a foot of rain in there. Could be a lot of flooding if it falls in urban areas. Even as it is, this is looking a good bit like Lee from September 2001, with a lot of flooding for eastern Pennsylvania and parts of New Jersey, Delaware. We can't rule out, though, that some of the south and east winds against the mountains of New England will give heavy rain there. I'm right now calling for 2 to 4 inches, but there, local flooding. So storm surge, widespread winds, but certainly a rain runoff and river flood threat exists, as well as flash flooding.
And that's Lee from last year.
Yeah,
right?
Lee from last year.
All right. So we have that kind of flooding, and then we have the whole separate kind of storm surge flooding. So look at this. Let me push this back up here. And so we have, this is from storm surge. So this is the ocean being pushed up on the shoreline here. And there you see a Cape Hatteras and 2 to 4 feet up in the Tidewater, and then more as you go on north there. And the worst of this will be to the right side of where Sandy comes in. So if Sandy comes into South Jersey, it's all up in here. So this is why the evacuations are ordered in New York City. Look at these numbers, 6 to 11 feet of water above the normal tide is spectacularly high water. As a matter of fact, we did the calculations here. Our storm surge expert, Mike Lauer, did it. The highest storm surge ever for New York City, going all the way back to the 19th century, if it comes in as forecast.
Bad scene for coastal Connecticut, too.
That's absolutely right. And on up into New England. All right, back to you, Todd.
Those are just extraordinary numbers. Thank you both so much. Of course, we'll have continuing coverage with our experts. We'll take you out to the coastline coming up at the top of the hour. We'll be with you throughout this entire event. And did want to mention, there's a look at our power outage map. That is a large area of likely power outages. We'll give you more reasoning as to why we think those numbers are going to be that big. And if you lose power, we will certainly be with you online and on your mobile devices. We'll be right back. Welcome back. 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, 5 o'clock Central. You are looking outside, at least just some of the waves there that we've been dealing with. Again, really angry Atlantic Ocean right now. This is an extraordinary storm, and the Hurricane Sandy already punishing the East Coast. Heavy rain, vicious winds, dangerous storm surge, and the potential for that only continues to go up, especially inside Long Island Sound in the New York City area. Evacuations are underway right now. Hopefully, you have all the supplies you need at this hour because that window of opportunity is closing very fast. In many cases, a lot of the mid-Atlantic coast will already be seeing those winds gusting up to and even over 50 miles per hour. Even tomorrow morning, never mind tomorrow at this time. The Weather Channel has sent out our team of meteorologists to bring you the very latest on Sandy. Julie Martin, Jim Cantori, Eric Fisher, Mike Seidel, and also Reynolds Wolf live on the scene reports straight ahead. From the Weather Channel headquarters in Atlanta, you are watching an extended Weather Center Live tracking Hurricane Sandy, and we will be with you throughout this storm. Thanks so much for staying with us. As I mentioned, 6 o'clock Eastern time, and I mentioned Central time because there are actually going to be some effects also up towards the Great Lakes. I want to bring you the very latest on the storm right now. 16-foot waves reported off the coast of Delaware, and we are just under an hour away from New York City suspending subway service. So that means the time is ticking there. It happens at 7 p.m. You want to make sure you are in place. Good luck trying to find a cab after that closes down. 2 Hurricane Hunter airplanes are on their way to investigate Sandy. We'll certainly bring you the very latest on their, at least their findings there. The recon mission's underway. Right now, though, I want to take you into the Weather Channel's exclusive Tropical Threat Index. Or first, let's actually look at the update, the latest from the National Hurricane Center there. You saw those max sustained winds at 75 miles per hour. The alert here, again, at least some areas you at least want to be ready for some impacts from this system. But the action area, that whole huge area in red, we really can't state enough. The power outage potential, the inland flooding potential from huge rainfall numbers. And we'll take a look at some of those coming up. But make sure you are ready right now. Tonight is the time to make sure that you've made those preparations, because tomorrow it is not going to be the day to be traveling around, and we really want to at least stress that people need to be locked down and in their homes. Want to right now send it out to our hurricane specialist Brian Norcross for the latest. Brian.
Todd, we've been watching this thing since the beginning of last week, developing on the models, and then here it is in person, and it's already starting to happen here on this Sunday. And Monday is going to be the big day for most people, although the flooding has already started in the North Carolina, eastern North Carolina, and the eastern Virginia area down the Tidewater and on up to the east of Washington and Baltimore. But it's just going to get worse there as the system spreads to the north, essentially exactly as has been forecast by the National Hurricane Center and these computer forecast models. All right, let's show you once again here, just in case you're just tuning in, to bring you up to date on the latest advisory from the Hurricane Center. 75-mile-an-hour winds with the pressure at the last measurement, 952. As Todd said, hurricane hunters will go out there and continuously check it. The pressure is expected to stay about the same for a while, and then as it gets to the north and begins to turn the corner, it's expected to go down, because that's when all the ingredients come together to strengthen the storm, unfortunately, just before the worst of it comes ashore, and it's moving to the northeast, still parallel to the coast at 15 miles an hour, 270 miles from Charleston. Now, here is that wind forecast. This is for timing. This is what's so critical. There is the edge of the strong winds right now. The yellow areas are the strong winds, not that there aren't some gusts outside of that, but that's where trees are prone to come down and big problems will occur. And now at noon tomorrow, we see that the strongest winds, the hurricane force gusts, are approaching the coast there, Jersey Shore down to Delmarva, and the tropical storm force winds include all of the big cities of the Northeast, from Boston down to the Carolinas. And the indications are that this will be about the time that the system overall has its peak intensity in terms of highest winds, but with a diameter of winds in the 900 to 1,000 mile range, a diameter that we have never seen from a system that's called a hurricane. Then moving in to the shoreline and at about noontime for the center, but it's not especially relevant. That's not noontime, that's midnight. So this forecast has the center about midnight, pushing the water in all evening long along the Jersey Shore, Long Island, and on up into New England. And let me send it back to Todd, because I know we're going to check in on New England we don't want to leave them out. As bad as we think the situation, Todd, will be in the New York tri-state area, New England is going to have this incredible onshore flow as well.
They really are, Brian. Now, thanks so much. And of course, my family there, I have to send it out in that direction. One area bracing for the storm, certainly Narragansett, Rhode Island. It's actually where we find meteorologist Eric Fisher. And, you know, Eric, last time we checked in with you, there were a lot of folks out there walking around behind you. I know that I probably would have been one of them. But did folks kind of give you the idea that today was the day they were going to do that and tomorrow they really plan to take this seriously and heed the warning, stay indoors?
Yeah, I think everyone, you know, Todd, like you or me, we hear storms coming, right? And you grow up kind of near the shore and you're going to go down, you're going to look at the waves because it's that power of nature that a lot of us are so just, we look at it, it just grabs your attention. People are going to come out and do that. I hope that they're hunkering down tonight because come tomorrow morning, the wind's going to be ramping up. We've talked to some of the local authorities. They're going to shut down a bunch of roads by the time we get towards sunrise tomorrow. You're not going to be able to travel all that much, 70-mile-per-hour gusts and the coastal flooding. I think you won't have much of an option for a lot of people. They won't be able to get out as we head through the day on Monday. You look at some of the timing, and around Newport, we could be looking at, say, a 5-foot storm surge. That is very significant for them, at least moderate, if not major flooding. And also, we talked about those gusts that will probably top out late in the afternoon and more toward the evening, right around 70 miles per hour, certainly stronger than Irene, and a surge that's higher than Irene. And this area is just very prone to that east-southeasterly fetch of wind, which is what we're expecting. Narragansett Bay, Long Island Sound, where water can just pile in, and as the wind keeps coming out of the same direction, that water doesn't have anywhere to go. Then you mix in the fact that we've got a full moon and high tide cycles. Absolutely, we're going to be talking about a storm that people are going to talk about here for quite some time. And Todd, last time we were talking about 1938 and historical storms. I just think it's interesting to think about. 1938, obviously, barely any warning. We didn't have the technology we have now. But now we almost have too much information, and I think sometimes that's harder for people to take these storms seriously. They're hearing about it for days from every angle, and sometimes you don't know how to take one seriously or not. This is when we really want to push that message. It is going to be serious.
Very true, Eric. Very strong words there, and hopefully everyone does take it very seriously. We'll be back in just a moment, right after your local news.
Fact is, these folks need to get out of the barrier islands, and I know there will always be people, and I know these folks, I've spoken to these folks who are always smarter, and because the damage in Irene was less to the barrier islands, they're saying to themselves, well, maybe, yeah, see, he was wrong the last time. I turned out to be right, you turned out to be dead. That's not a great equation. And so, you know, the margin for error for me being wrong and you going and staying at a friend's house for 2 days, I think is significantly better than winding up with a severe injury or death for yourself or for your family.
And that was New Jersey Governor Chris Christie giving a very stern and sobering warning to the people that they need to get out of the barrier islands, reminding people it's a choice between life and death in really his own special way of saying it. But certainly need to heed those warnings. They're very serious, and this is a very serious situation. Welcome back to our nonstop coverage of Sandy. We actually continue now with meteorologist Reynolds Wolf. He's live in Mystic, Connecticut. And, you know, Reynolds, one thing there, we were looking at some of the storm surge potential numbers there. I do want to mention to folks that, you know, Long Island kind of acts like a little funnel to just channel all that water up in there inside Long Island Sound.
I mean, you know, some people could argue that it really is. You're absolutely right. I mean, it truly is true to the definition of a barrier island. It really has protected much of the coastline, including this one. Problem is, though, as you know this very well, Todd, the problem is if you have that water spinning around the top, over the top of Long Island, it tends to funnel back into a lot of the bays, the estuaries, and even, of course, harbors like this one in Mystic. Now, in this harbor, which of course is going to protect, brings obviously some protection for many of the vessels. You see a couple of them tied up here like the Dunton. They are expecting the water to rise here. In fact, with Irene, it got up to about the height of my ankles. But with this particular storm, they're expecting that the hurricane's going to provide water that could go up to about my chest height, about 4 feet or so. I can tell you this area, although it's fairly quiet now, was really a hotbed of activity. You had a lot of people securing the boats, really battening down some sails. But if you look over this shoulder, if you look over towards my left, and you look all the way down, you're going to see a single-masted vessel. And the sail that's hanging there, not looking so good. I'm really hoping someone's going to tie that up a little bit better. I do it myself. I have the dexterity of a doorknob. I can barely even tie my own shoes, for heaven's sakes, but it is going to get really strong. I can tell you that the winds are going to be strong, especially by the time we get to tomorrow night. Some approaching 70 miles per hour, some even stronger than that, and then we're going to spill on over into Tuesday morning. And then keep in mind, with the strong winds, you're going to see the potential power outages across the region. We've got a big mess for millions of people that will last for days, if not weeks. Todd, let's send it back to you.
All right, Reynolds Wolf, thank you so much there out of Mystic, Connecticut. I did just get word, actually, that there are a few areas there in southwest Virginia, elevation over 4,200 feet with 3 inches of snow on the ground, and that's going to pick up as well. But that's, at the moment, the least of our concerns. I want to talk more about some of the effects out at the coastline. I want to take you out to Jersey Shore. That's where we find meteorologist Mike Seidel. He was actually talking to residents in Point Pleasant as they were getting ready for Sandy.
Glenn Brown believes he's seen this all before. He's getting his Point Pleasant beach shop ready for the storm. He saw Irene firsthand and got through it. Sandy's potential for a higher storm surge makes him very nervous.
That's the real thing I'm concerned about, is the water pushing up from the bay and really everything converging a little more than Irene did last year.
Ken Fellows has lived here for 22 years and says he has nothing to compare this to. Fellows says that he's stocked up and ready for Sandy. He has no plans to leave his home.
I'm really not a stubborn person, but you know, kind of look at it, you try and get the best idea of what you're going to do and analyze it, and then you just, you know, you go from there.
Residents line the local gas stations today, filling tanks and gas cans, preparing to run their generators if needed.
Friday, it's bumper to bumper all day. Saturday, cans all day. And today it's the same thing, cans and bottles.
Police spent the early part of the day knocking on doors and letting residents know they might want to leave. They left reminders for those who didn't answer the door.
It just has all the information they need to know. Everything, time to evacuate, places to go, shelters. So everything that we can't tell them would be on there for them to know, yep.
The time for preparation is almost gone. For residents here and up and down the coast, the time to hunker down comes next. I'm meteorologist Mike Seidel.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mike. And I mentioned as we went to Mike there, at least some of the other threats with this storm. We have the flood potential, the strong winds over such a huge area, and one other concern there. I mentioned the snow. If we do lose power to millions of people, there will be a significant area, especially along the Central Appalachians, that could have a big problem there. When you lose power and you have snow on the ground, you are talking about some cold nights there. We've already had reports in here through Southwest Virginia of up to 3 inches of snow falling there, so the cold air is already in place, up to 1 to 2 feet. Some blizzard warnings in place through western portions of Maryland all the way back down through western Virginia. So again, we want to make sure you are prepared for every side of the storm. We'll be with you 24/7, continuing coverage. Welcome back. Coming up on 20 minutes past the hour. We now have just about 40 minutes until New York City Transit closes down. Did want to let you know that federal offices in D.C. will be closed on Monday. New York subway, as I mentioned, and over 5,800 flights between today through Thursday already canceled, and we may add to some more of those. Want to take you now out to another coastal area. Want to take you to NBC's Jay Gray. He's live in Cape May, New Jersey. Jay, there have to be some concerns there considering you're really surrounded kind of on three sides by water.
Yeah, no question about that, Todd. And they're really worried about the surge here as the storm moves inland and onshore late Monday into Tuesday. Look, you can see the radar right now, and there are strong bands of rain moving through this area, through New Jersey right now. We're getting a break, thankfully, right now here in Cape May, but we've seen the rain pick up throughout the day here. The winds have picked up as well. Again, a bit of a lull right now, which we'll take because a lot more is on the way. But the winds are gusting 25 to 30 across much of the state right now. That's going to pick up dramatically. We've seen it throughout the day with Julie Martin in the Carolinas and North Carolina, seeing those strong gusts 35 to 50 and that driving rain 6 to 7 inches. She's already seen there. All of that headed to New Jersey right now. It's a big concern. The time to prepare quickly running out for so many people in this state. Where we are right now in a hotel just off the shore here, they are finishing up what has been a day of boarding the windows here and getting ready for things. Same thing going on in this community and across New Jersey. Governor Chris Christie urging people to get ready and telling them that they can make this thing work.
New Jersey Transit currently dispatching buses to Atlantic City to assist in the evacuation of approximately 4,000 residents from Atlantic City. Want to remind everyone, if you're being evacuated and you have a pet, please bring your pet with you. In addition to supplies, you should also bring clothing, whatever other items you think you may need for the next couple of days.
Yeah, and a couple of days is the short end of this. A lot of the warnings from emergency officials, especially here in New Jersey, are prepare to be without power for maybe a week or more. So we're getting ready to see conditions take a dramatic turn for the worse here. It's going to continue that way for quite some time. You've been talking about it for the last several days. Huge system moving very slowly, so we're going to get a lot of wind. We're going to get that driving rain, and then that surge is going to cause some flooding. Back to you.
You know, Jay, one quick question for you. I know I've spoken to you in a number of different tropical situations. You're well seasoned in this sort of thing. 55 degrees outside with gusty winds out of the north. Does that feel like you're waiting for a tropical system to come into the coast?
You know, it's funny because we've been talking about that over the last couple of days in Delaware yesterday and here in New Jersey today, and none of this fits the profile of a normal storm, if you will. So it's very different. It's very disconcerting, and not only for those of us who've been in a few storms, but also for the people here. It just doesn't make sense. Sure, they saw some winter-type storms over the past couple of years, but nothing like we're getting ready to see with Sandy.
All right, Jay Gray, live in Cape May, New Jersey. Thanks so much for the update there. Want to send you now over to our Global Forecast Center. Want to actually bring you into Dr. Greg Postel, a little more in-depth analysis of what's going on out here.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I mean, that conversation you had is exactly, you know, what we've all been thinking of about and dealing with is the rarity of what we have here. You know, those cool northerly winds right now along the coast, and now we're just getting reports of snow in Wise County, Virginia, elevation 4,200 feet. They have 3 inches of snow already. So this is not just a hurricane, it's a whole lot of other things mixed in, and it is going to be really, really bad. So, but you know, one of the players, I was just looking at some of the satellite imaging and some of the model data, one of the players, the pieces of the jet stream that will be coming in and helping to amplify or strengthen this system even, we think, a little bit more, has yet to really come into play. It's a jet stream that is right now over the eastern part of the United States. There's some cool air aloft associated with that. That has yet to move really over Sandy in a way that will likely lower the pressure even further. The pressure's already in the low 950s, and we think that maybe the addition of some of that jet stream energy will help to lower that pressure even more. Let's look at some of the current conditions already being experienced on the northeast coast. Now, this is over 500 miles away from where the center of Sandy is. You're starting to see winds basically in the 10 to 20 mile per hour sustained range there. Gust to 30 is common all across New Jersey, Long Island, Connecticut, southern New England, and a little bit stronger even farther to the south than that. And this is leading to some water rises that we've already seen across parts of New York. 2.3 foot water rise. This is the component that is associated with Sandy alone. This does not include the tides. So when we look at Kings Point, Montauk, we're talking 1 to 3 feet almost. Anyway, in these regions, it's going to get a lot higher than that as time goes on. This evening, 9 o'clock, center of Sandy located roughly 250 miles east of Cape Hatteras. The worst weather for you in Cape Hatteras will likely be between now and about 3 a.m. tomorrow morning. And then because we start to see Sandy move off toward the north, your conditions should gradually improve early in the morning. And then tomorrow, we will see the center of Sandy move very likely into central New Jersey. Strong winds all around the center, very near 75 mile per hour in gusts. But those winds will extend over a large distance because of this system is so huge. So we will send it back to you in the studio.
All right, Dr. Greg, thanks so much. As you just mentioned, a lot of the coast already feeling the impacts of Sandy. It will cover a large part of the Right now, the rush is on as people make their last-minute preparations for Hurricane Sandy. This storm is surpassing expectations in many ways, and let's say not in a good way of any of those. Now, I will show you where and when that storm could cause flooding, down trees, power outages for millions of people. There is no way that we can state this sternly enough as far as what we're facing here. Thanks so much for staying with us here in our extended coverage. I'm Todd Santos. You're watching around-the-clock coverage, in fact, of Hurricane Sandy. As you hunker down, we will also be doing the same here at our headquarters in Atlanta. And of course, we have crews stationed all along the coastline. This system is already a historic storm, and it is far from over. I want to bring you the very latest into the Weather Channel Satellite Center. Now, 3 inches of snow reported in Wise County, Virginia. That's western Virginia. That is Southwest Virginia, I should say, right close to the Kentucky border at elevation there. Airlines are taking no chances. They're moving aircraft away from airports on the East Coast. And we've just learned that federal offices in D.C. will be closed on Monday. I want to talk about the very latest with this system, bringing our hurricane specialist. I believe, it's Brian Norcross joining us there. Brian, sorry, we have all these experts and specialists.
Yeah, we're working full tilt here. Everybody is in. There are so many aspects of this storm to talk about. Every kind of hazard that you can get in a hurricane and a nor'easter, it's going to be all mixed in this one storm. So you have the storm surge, which will be, we think in many cases, record storm surge for the Northeast. We have the rain, we have the snow, and we have the wind over a vast area. So the really important thing as we talk about the track of the center of the storm is to imagine then 400 or 500 miles off the track, still having the wind effects and the storm surge effects. Okay, let's bring you up to date. If you're just tuning in here at 6:30 Eastern Time, with a 75-mile-an-hour top wind is the estimate from the National Hurricane Center. There's the pressure being a measure of the energy in the storm, and that energy is spread out over a vast area away from the center, and that number, I know that doesn't mean much, 952, but 946 is the lowest number ever recorded for a landfalling system of any kind in the Northeast. So we are down in that kind of territory here, with the system still, the thinking is, having a ways to go in terms of intensification. So here we can see the circulation of the storm. So you can see it right there at Cape Hatteras. And then up here, we have the upper air system, and sort of the nor'easter part of the system is making this extremely heavy band or continuous band of rain to the east of Washington. Dr. Forbes will be along at 50 after the hour to talk more about that in detail. The models are all focusing on the center coming ashore in New Jersey, Delmarva, Delaware Bay area. Now, what's significant about that is, of course, the direction of the winds. So that on the right side, that piles the water up against the coast, North Jersey, up into the New York area, tri-state area, and on up into New England. And this includes Maine, this includes Massachusetts, Cape Cod, includes all of the United States north of where this center comes in. And then look what the system does. It kind of lollygags here for a bit and then slowly moves on out to the north, so the winds will be around for a while. So here's the circulation. Here we are Monday evening, and we're getting water pushed down Long Island Sound. I just forgot there for a second. Long Island Sound, and pushed toward New York City on Monday evening. So that means the surge will be pushed up against the southern side of Long Island. The water will be pushed in along the north side. That'll affect Connecticut. That'll affect Rhode Island up here in Narragansett Bay. And that'll affect down into New York City, with water coming down and water coming up and meeting in New York City. And that's why the surge expectation is so high there. We also have the wind alerts of all kinds, including the alert for hurricane force winds for this area here, going all the way up to nearly Cape Cod, and tropical storm force winds north of that, and the flood alert for most of the northeastern part of the U.S. So every hazard in the book coming with this storm. Todd?
All right, Brian, thanks so much. The Weather Channel has the most experienced team of meteorologists in the business covering this storm, from the beaches or the eastern beaches of North Carolina to New York City and even Rhode Island. I want to take you there right now to Narragansett, Rhode Island. And as the afternoon has progressed, we've been seeing the waves picking up behind meteorologist Eric Fisher. And, you know, Eric, I'm curious, it's been a while since I've surfed over there. I forget how high the seawall is, but is that 3 to 6 foot surge potential enough to put the water over the seawall at Gansett?
Where we are right here, absolutely. It's not very tall at all, maybe about 3 feet or so, and the water is going to come up over that as we head into the day tomorrow. We're at Scarborough Beach. If you head down toward The downtown area, seawall there may be breached as well. I'm actually not as familiar as Todd certainly is growing up in Rhode Island. I'll have to check that out. We're going to be in that area tomorrow, most likely. What we do know is there are plenty of low-lying areas that are likely going to see a significant impact from that rising water as we head into the day tomorrow. The coast isn't the same as what you have down the Gulf Coast with a landfalling hurricane. When the water comes in, it comes in because the ground is generally flat. There are a lot of cliffs, lots of hills, dunes in this part of this country, but there are those low-lying spots that are very prone, and there are mandatory evacuations in place that go in effect at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. For the most part, things are going to be shut down as we head into the day on Monday. You've got the wind moving in from here to Boston with gusts over 50 miles per hour and perhaps as high as 70 miles per hour, especially as we head into that evening time frame. So a lot of the businesses are going to be closed. I was looking at the school cancellations. Most of them are done for the day on Monday, so you don't have to worry about that. And the local authorities are going to be closing down some of these roads that are susceptible to storm surge flooding. So it's going to be a day where you have plenty of incentives to stay inside with a big storm working its way in. We're kind of prioritizing the risks here, and it looks like surge is number one, wind is number two with those power outages, and some of those outages could last for several days. That's another thing we're going to be talking about. Just a scene here that you get these storms coming in, and you say, it's New England. We see all sorts of storms rolling through here over the years. You don't believe something's going to happen until you see it, Todd. And if we get flooding, say, 6 to 11 feet in Long Island Sound, a lot of folks have never seen that.
That's quite right, Eric. Yeah, and you mentioned earlier about the technology. People now think they know so much more about everything, but really, we're trying to just kind of enforce the fact that this is different than any storm any of us have lived through. So again, take this seriously. Remember, after the rain and the wind, millions of you will not have power, and it will be considerably cold out there. May even be snowing where you live. Here's what you want to make sure you have at the ready, including blankets, sleeping bags. We'll be right back with continuing coverage. Folks in Staten Island have been ordered to evacuate. Lines are forming at some of the gas stations around the area today as people prepared to get out of town there. Really the best thing you could possibly do when you're told to evacuate. Heed the warnings. Otherwise, folks that stay, it makes it very dangerous for first responders if you do need something out there. We also heard today from New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg on what could happen if the power goes out.
If electricity goes out, the elevators will stop and people could be trapped in them. And the heat and hot water, it's all the electrical controls for that. So we're just trying to prepare.
And they're actually going to be turning off at least the heat for a number of buildings there, at least as far as some of the public housing is concerned in New York. Welcome back into our continuing coverage. We will be with you throughout the duration of the storm. And even if you do lose power, we'll certainly be with you online and on your mobile devices. Right now, I want to check in Mystic, Connecticut, inside Long Island Sound. That's where we find our own Reynolds Wolf. And Reynolds, you know, we've been trying to just get folks prepared for every separate facet of this storm. There's so many different angles to cover here.
No question about it. You know, all day we've been coming here from Mystic, from the seaport, and showing you just this really a beehive of activity. A lot of people battening down the sails. I mean, I'm not using it just as an expression. That's what we saw today in many places. A lot of people securing the moorings, getting the boats ready for the rising water that we expect. In fact, could be as high as just my mid-chest level as we get to tomorrow and certainly for the next several days. Something else that we have going on is not here, but rather back in the town. In fact, our producer, Laura Korinsky, was out and about earlier today, and just in a short drive, she saw so many people at the gas stations, a lot of people going into the grocery stores. They're paying attention to what is coming. And for viewers at home, people tuning in across America, let's go ahead and show you these graphics and go through it step by step and show you what's going to happen starting tomorrow. Let's begin first and foremost, of course, with Monday. Here they are, wind gusts approaching and then possibly surpassing 60 miles per hour. The water rise, we talked about that. Rain heavy at times. That's all but a given. We're going to see that happen. Now let's go to the next graphic, which is going to show you what's going to happen tomorrow night. This is where it gets crazy. You got wind gusts 70 mile per hour plus. You could see, that means we could see them over 74. That's the magic number. Once you get over that, hurricane force gusts. Absolutely. Might see some even stronger than that as we get to the overnight hours. And as we wrap things up, take a look at what you can expect into Tuesday. Tuesday, whatever tree has been weakened by nearly 12 to 24 hours of just relentless wind, you've got another day of it going with 60 mile an hour gusts and still the heavy rainfall. A huge, huge rush of heavy air, obviously heavy rain, and the storm surge coming in. It is going to be the triple whammy, and then the power outages, that only compels the problem. Makes it even worse for many people. Let's send it back to you, Todd.
All right, Reynolds Wolf, thank you so much in Mystic, Connecticut. We want to check back in with our crews out in the field, starting with Jim Cantori from Battery Park, New York.
On the eve of a historic storm here in New York City, many others will feel the impacts of the storm well inland and even as far west as the Great Lakes. The one thing that we'll be watching here at the Battery is how high is this water going to get. The National Weather Service says it could come as high as 11.7 feet, which would set a new record all time for storm tide here at the Battery. That is a pretty amazing statement when you think of the kind of storms and hurricanes that we've had up and through here. But all the ingredients are coming together. The forecasts are synchronized. This storm is coming in anywhere between 120 to 175 miles to the south of New York City. But it's got a far-reaching effect in terms of that storm surge. And you can see all these areas now in this graphic that show how high that water is going to get. Look at this, Jersey Shore, 4 to 8 feet. Long Island Sound, 6 to 11 feet. It was that tick in the storm surge forecast that allowed the mayor today to say, look, we got to evacuate Zone A. We got to get everybody out of here. They're hoping to have that done by 7 o'clock. That is when mass transit begins to shut down. So slowly but surely, with schools closing now and certainly mass transit shutting down, we expect the city that never sleeps to take a little nap and let Sandy come and go. Reporting from the Battery, I'm meteorologist Jim Cantori. Back to you.
The light is fading here on Point Pleasant Beach here in North Jersey. As the day wore on, the winds ramped up, now gusting over 35 miles an hour. And the tide, the next tide around 7 this evening, it's already higher than it was this morning. Looking down the beach, look at the wave action just eating away at these beaches. And we're going to deal with this for the next day or so. The worst of the weather tomorrow and tomorrow night and early Tuesday morning. So tomorrow morning's high tide, tomorrow night's high tide around 8 to 8:30 up and down the Jersey Shore will be the worst. Surge expected to be as high as 8 feet. Waves on top of that will again go over the dunes and more than likely in some of this beachfront property, which has all been boarded up at this point. Mandatory evacuation kicked in at 4. There are still a lot of people here in town walking the boardwalk around the beaches. The police are trying to get those folks off the beaches, off the boardwalk, and either inside or inland. That evacuation is for east of the railroad tracks here at Point Pleasant Beach. It's going to be a wild, dangerous, and destructive Monday and Monday night here on the Jersey Shore. Back to you.
And thanks, Mike. As we go to break, did want to mention we are going to be streaming our coverage live on weather.com throughout the duration of this event. We'll be right back.
It's 50 minutes after the hour. Time for Tropical Update. I'm Brian Norcross here at the Weather Channel Global Forecast Center. Dr. Greg Forbes will be joining me here in just a second. If you're just tuning in, there are no big changes, unfortunately. No significant changes. If anything, the storm has just gotten bigger and it is right on track. And here is that track from the National Hurricane Center for the center of the storm. And of course, the track is narrowing dramatically because we're getting closer to the time that the center is going to come ashore. So the closer in time you get, the narrower the track, the more certainty there is. So there is a significant certainty that this center is going to take a left. And the important thing about that center, wherever it comes ashore, and it looks like it's from the Delmarva to South Jersey for the center, is that on the right side, the circulation brings the wind around this way, and that pushes water up against the coast on this side. And on the left side, the wind comes this way, but as you'll see in a second, the left side is going to have the heaviest rain. Not that there's not going to be rain all through the storm, but that's important. It also shows an 80-mile-an-hour storm here just offshore, and then only weakening to 60 miles an hour by the afternoon on Tuesday as it moves ashore and the friction of the land takes over. So this is going to be a long time, very, very high wind event. Now here's our future radar. So here's the computer simulating what the radar is going to look like, and the bright oranges and yellows there, and especially the reds, are the heaviest rain. And look at it now through Monday morning. Here's Monday morning. Look at that heavy rain from Philadelphia down south to Washington into the Tidewater. And look, here we go till 2 p.m. on Monday. And at this point, this tremendous rain down here with heavy, heavy snow. I'm going to ask Dr. Forbes in a second how snowfall forecast. What is that total? Some pretty good rain up to the north. But the main thing is the circulation here is pushing the water from the ocean on into the coast on the right side, and then offshore here on the left side. Here is how high that water is going to get pushed. Look at this, 4 to 6 feet. So what this means, if you're standing down at the shoreline, 4 to 6 feet above where the water would normally be in Cape Hatteras, 2 to 4 feet up at the Tidewater, and then we go north. This is on the right side, 4 to 8 feet here on a large area, but look at the purple area, 6 to 11 feet up, challenging record levels for water around New York City, 3 to 6 feet on up to south side of Cape Cod, 2 to 4 feet farther north. All right, Dr. Forbes, let's go back to talk about that rainfall because it's already significant and it's just going to get more coming down.
Yeah, indeed. It's been very heavy for a while, including yesterday in North Carolina. There's been some places there with 6 inches. It's showing its hand now, spreading farther up into the mid-Atlantic. Here you see on the radar, the current radar, this has some pretty heavy showers and a narrow little band here all the way up into southeast Pennsylvania, east of Baltimore there in the eastern shores of Maryland, down into the coastal parts of Virginia, and then it still continues down into North Carolina. That's where there's a squeeze taking place. Winds west of that, mostly from the north at the surfaces, and it's also doing that squeezing a little bit aloft as well. They're coming more in from the north and east. You squeeze it together, it rises, it gives heavy rain. We're also going to have a front that will consolidate in that area. By the way, even though the heaviest rain is falling there where I showed you, there's been lighter rain, and it's already, the Monocacy River there near Frederick, Maryland is already above flood stage. So we're going to have some significant flooding because there's a lot more rain yet to fall in that area. Now, Brian was mentioning that Sandy's going to make a left turn. That's going to be because it's beginning to interact, especially by tomorrow morning, with the upper level jet stream that has been marching east across the country. It has cold air aloft as opposed to the warm core hurricane. It's a negative tilt, northwest to southeast. When it gets that, you get very strong lifting in the area out ahead of that. That makes for heavy rain. The front stalls in there. The moisture on the north side of Sandy pushes into that frontal zone, collides, lifts, as well as gets pushed over top of the cold air west of that. And so that is where the heaviest rain is going to fall. In yellow here, 4 to 8 inches. If it falls in a narrow zone, it'll be a lot more than that. Certainly, many places could get over a foot of rain in this area. Up in the south and east facing slopes of the mountains in New England, there could be 2 to 4 inches and some local flooding there. Anything more in this yellow shaded area, more than about 3 inches, is going to give a river flooding possibility. And of course, anything that falls in the urban areas is going to be a flash flood threat as well. So we're going to have river and some flash flooding as also a legacy, maybe a lot like Lee's area from 2011.
And we have the snow in the higher elevations, right? And more than 2 feet or more in some spots, all the way down into North Carolina, Tennessee, Todd. So an incredible storm with every kind of weather you can imagine in one storm, except for tornadoes. We don't expect tornadoes.
Yeah, the threat looks pretty low. I wouldn't rule something out Tuesday. Stay tuned.
Okay.
Yeah, small benefit there of some of the cool air that's in place. Thanks so much, guys. Hey, I want to bring you some eyewitness shots. One coming in from Ocracoke Island, North Carolina. This is from Les Huber. Eyewitness shot of some flooding there. Certainly be safe. We're likely to see still some tropical storm conditions in Ocracoke and the Outer Banks there, really right through the middle of this week, even right through Wednesday. If you can send us some shots, eyewitness@weather.com or weather.com/eyewitness. A great way to get that to us. Just be safe while you're shooting that. We'll have continuing coverage 24/7 on air, online, on your mobile. Kelly and Ryan coming up next.
Breaking news right now. Here's a live look at New York City, where right now all subway and commuter railway service is ending.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo ordered the MTA to suspend service starting at 7 p.m. Eastern ahead of Hurricane Sandy's impacts. Buses will be running until 9 p.m. local time. Also, all New York City schools will be closed tomorrow.
Also looking live at Philly and Boston. Same scenario here. Tens of thousands of students in both school systems will get tomorrow off. Philadelphia and Boston public schools have both canceled classes due to Hurricane Sandy. Well, certainly one of the biggest storms of our lifetimes is unfolding right now. Hello and thanks for joining us on this extended edition of Weather Center Live. I'm Kelly Cass.
And I'm Ryan Goswick. Our team of veteran meteorologists here at the Weather Channel say every state of the Mississippi, east of the Mississippi, will be impacted by the storm. It's massive. It's really impressive when you see just how far the impacts are.
A lot of wind energy, that's for sure. From an army of meteorologists out in the thick of it to a team of experts in our Global Forecast Center, we have team coverage only the Weather Channel can bring you.
Let's check it off right now with our senior hurricane specialist, Brian Norcross, who joins us right now in the Global Forecast Center. Brian.
All right, Ryan, we're right on track with this storm.